Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about sieges in Total War Pharaoh and what has changed and how to approach them. Well, one of the more significant changes, if you will, is the fact that you can no longer get pocket ladders in order to assault the wall in a siege at the moment in Total War Pharaoh. You need to get these ladders. These ladders that you have to build pre-battle. You need to get these siege ladders. If you do not have siege ladders, you're not going to be able to assault the wall. Now, a lot of discussion has been made over the years over the fact that, oh, you could just get pocket ladders. Well, I'm gonna say it outright. I always thought that this was a bit of a ridiculous point, if you will. The reason I say that is because it never really mattered to whether or not you could get ladders, if you could use ladders, pocket ladders or not. Because while I am certain that Creative Assembly assumes we should, use siege ladders, siege towers, breach the walls with sap points, that is something that has become available right now, the best way to fight sieges in every single Total War game is either you have artillery, and with artillery comes the ability to of creating openings in a wall, or you don't have artillery, in which case you want to attack the gates, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. I have 2 rams. If I didn't have the rams, I would just use my units to attack the gates, unless the game forced me to do so. But there's a lot of obsession about, like, oh, you shouldn't be able to attack the gates, you shouldn't do that. The problem with sieges is that there's never a reason to not do what I'm doing right here. Sending units on the wall is, generally speaking, a really bad idea, because they're going to fight in a confined space. A lot of their combat power is neutralized. That's great for the defender, but not great if you're the attacker, if you're trying to take over the settlement. So if you're trying to take over a settlement, actually sending units on the wall is the worst decision you can make. The reason the AI gets slaughtered en masse in sieges is because they try and use these tactics, and these tactics are just, quite frankly, not very effective. What you want to do is you want to take the gates or create pathways through the wall, like destroying the wall with the sap point in Pharaoh, though the sap point takes at least 2 turns to build in pretty much every situation in the campaign. You can't reduce that. So you either build sap point, or in other Total War games you get artillery, you break through the wall. Now in Warhammer 3, one of the things you can do, since there's range-centric factions in that game, is you can use ranged units to kill everything in sight. Like, that's something that Kislev does. Well, in Pharaoh, ranged units are pretty useless at killing units on the wall. Maybe if you have, like, maybe if the defender has very low level of armor on their units, but like things like archers are not going to kill heavily armored units in this game. And skirmishers, well, skirmishers are just not effective enough to do it. So over here, we're just going to attack the gate. The units that are actually pushing those rams are not are going to take a bit of damage. That's why I sent those spearmen, because they are disposable. The Braves of the King, they're basically disposable units, and this is the best way to fight the siege battle in the game. You take everything you have, you go through the gates. If the enemy contests you, you need to have the kind of melee power to break through them trying to hold the choke point. If you don't have that kind of melee power, you probably shouldn't fight the siege in the first place. And every other tactic, like, the only question with other tactics is, like, can you force more openings in the walls? Or are you going to be in this position? And this applies to every game. Like, this is not new to Pharaoh. This is not even new to Warhammer. This is something that goes back all the way to Rome 1. If you can't force open the gate, sending units on the walls is a really bad idea. Now, the intent, of course, of sending units on the walls is to open up other avenues of attack. But again, if either the AI is capable enough at stopping you, or it is not capable enough in terms of stopping you. And there's essentially no middle ground with respect to that.
You have captured the gates.
Like, either
On the march.
the AI can put up a significant defense
Fight for Pharaoh.
to halt you, or it cannot.
Kill them.
There's no middle path with respect to that.
Slay them.
So right now I'm just getting as many units past the walls as I possibly can, trying to spread them out, trying to open avenues of attack. The AI has failed to hold me back, so I'm gaining an advantage. I'm gonna start slaughtering his ranged units over there. And I would try and kill Konda because I do need the morale benefit there, if you will.
We will triumph.
Okay.
Spears.
Axe warriors.
So we're just gonna
Infantry
charge
moving.
things up. Now, once you are past
Destroy them.
a gate like this,
Fight with honor.
you want to try and spread your units out, get as much of ground advantage as you can. If you have ranged units, like, you want to get them into a position where they can actually fire, because obviously you should get ranged units. Though, to be honest, in Pharaoh, I don't think, you know, I'm gonna say it outright, I think a pure melee army is actually gonna work quite a lot better than people might believe it is. Like, poor Amon Mess, like, I know this matchup is unrealistic, like, obviously Amon Mess would be highly unlikely to ever face Konda in a battle, right?
Spill blood. No quota.
So this kind of battle matchup would never really take place.
You'll die.
Power and pride. Break their neck.
For a wide variety of reasons.
Axe warriors.
Okay, they're fleeing right there.
Fight with honor.
Amon Mess.
Axe warriors.
Okay, let's try and get the charge
Infantry
unit
moving.
You will fall.
set up.
Fight has won.
Spears.
Kopeshi coming in.
On the move.
Alright, one unit.
Into position. Fight
Ooh,
hard.
they've taken some serious
Your
damage
warriors
over
are
there.
wavering. Together, brothers. Always ready.
And you
On
just
the
try and
march.
find as many openings as possible.
Destroy them.
Which is exactly what I'm doing here. And you try and kill the
Never
general.
falter.
This is the best way of fighting a siege. Now, maybe
Pushing
the,
on.
like, in this case I do,
Never forget.
well, I actually don't
Marching
outnumber
on.
them.
Your
Really?
warriors have been routed.
Because I've gone for
Through.
a bunch of more elite units, so there's
You have
your
captured
models.
the enemy tower.
I mean, I may have more individual units, and obviously I've nullified their range power, or range firepower fairly
Spears.
easily there. Poor decision making
and
on that.
pride.
This is, by the way, very hard, so I might lose on
Spears.
accounting on the fact that the AI does get a bunch of
Marching
bullshit
on.
benefits and morale. Like, I,
Together, brothers.
it is a shame
My armor
because
is worn through.
one of the things they did quite well
Firstborn
recently
son.
in
Axe
Warhammer.
warriors.
One of the things they did quite well recently in Warhammer, Warhammer 3 is that they allow you to turn these off and not
Fight
affect
for Pharaoh.
the general competency
Cut through them.
of the AI.
Trample them.
But that's not the case in Pharaoh.
Viceroy of
Different
Kush.
team, right?
Spears.
Different
The
design
enemy
and
is trying to
intentions
control the gates.
Retribution.
between these different
Fighters of
teams.
Nubia.
Okay,
Axe
so
warriors.
they're fighting over there. Like, you might have a lot of situations like these in battles where, like, there's not necessarily a whole
Just
lot
need to
going
catch
on,
my breath.
and it's just like you gotta wait to
Fighters
play
of
that
Nubia.
waiting the game, wait for
Tear them
things to
apart.
happen.
Spears. Onwards.
Marching. Die. Fear us.
And yeah, I gotta say, pathfinding does feel not too great.
Infantry moving.
Spears.
Fight your way in. Onward.
So what's new about sieges in Total War?
Soldiers, move.
Like, the problem though,
Axe warriors.
in these kind of situations, right,
To
is
victory!
that sieges and settlement battles
Axe warriors!
constitute a major portion of the game. We're not talking here a small portion
Pushing on! Meet your
of the game
end!
that you can just, you know, easily
For my
ignore.
birthright! Onwards!
No, it is a significant portion of what you're doing.
Spears!
So over here, basically, the battle is won.
As
Keep in
requested.
mind, it would have been won already on
March on!
On,
All out attack!
a lower battle difficulty. It's basically the morale, the various benefits the AI gets from very hard that's keeping them in, which you would not be dealing with in
Sons
a
of
campaign,
Egypt.
because in a campaign situation,
Taking
what
what's
ends
mine.
up happening
Fear
in that kind of
us!
situation, like you always want to
Fighters of
try and
Nubia!
outpace the AI. You always
Axe
want
warriors!
to try and
On the march!
like get some kind of
Victory is within your
advantage
grasp.
against that, because
To
like if you're
victory!
going up against, like if you end up in a situation on the campaign map
These
where
trees give us
you've
cover.
got the same tier of an army led by the same tier of a
Vengeance
general
and
with no
victory!
upgrades factored in, all that.
Glorious combat!
That is the worst kind of situation to encounter on the
Spears!
campaign map.
Never forget!
So our siege is better? No. Honestly, I gotta say no. No, there. I mean, it is good
The
that
true
you can't just use ranged units to kill everything on the walls. That is certainly good, right? So there's a reason I have no ranged units whatsoever in this army, because they would just be useless.
Axe
Like
warriors!
they would be useful once
Your
if
hidden
I
units
busted through the
are
walls.
revealed.
Absolutely,
Firstborn son!
I've decided I hate
they would certainly be
peace.
useful in that kind of scenario.
You'll know defeat!
But outside of that, no, they would not be really
Swordsman!
useful at all.
Retribution!
So siege towers, siege ladders, sap points, completely pointless. The only thing you need are battering rams, and honestly, you don't even need battering rams. All
Show
you
no
need,
mercy.
what is more important, is like
You have captured the
having
gates.
heavy infantry in it. Keep in mind, I want to point this out, that if, let's say he would have defended, let's say he would have concentrated all of his units trying to hold the points. The fact the AI is trying to defend the walls speaks volumes about the kind of tactics the AI is preparing to defend against. But we gotta understand here, the units he had. Now keep in mind the defender has a lower budget to account to that. And these skirmishers though, these skirmishers are not too bad in melee. I mean sure, they're not gonna hold a candle, but to be fair, they actually have decent melee, enough melee stats, and they're not completely useless. Though yeah, I did have the higher tier army, because I did have, like, granted I had mostly tier 4 units, 2 units were just completely pointless. It's the Pharaoh guard certainly made a significant difference. Amon Mess has, like, we need to talk about this. This is one of the problems that cannot be ignored. The balancing issue. What makes or breaks a siege is not siege equipment. It's never been pocket ladders. That's a load of crap shit, honestly. Like anyone who talks about pocket ladders, oh, that's not how sieges. I don't give a shit how sieges are supposed to be historically. I understand the context of the way a siege would be historically. You'd be spending months, half a year, if not years, besieging a settlement to starve them into submission, dependent on the number of defenders. That's not how sieges work in Total War. Like, it would require a completely different campaign. Within the context of a Total War campaign, you are going to launch an assault, which, by the way, was a fairly rare thing for it to happen in an actual siege. In any siege, like certainly in a major siege. So here's one of the problems, and this is what I think, what I believe contributes to a great deal of the issues I've been seeing in Pharaoh. And one of the things I heavily dislike. Like, you can avoid this problem, to be clear, with auto-resolve, because you can auto-resolve your way through sieges, and auto-resolve is decent enough. But the problem is, you either have heavy infantry units that can break through a blockade the defenders, or you don't. And if you don't, you can't win. Simple as that. Like, look at Amon Mess's situation. Look at the units I had to use. Like, the only units that are actually part of his roster are the Kushite Royal Guard. That is it. They're decent enough. To be sure, they are decent enough units. But it's not the Kushite Royal Guard that won that battle for me. right? It was the Pharaoh Guard units, it was the Royal Capeshi Guard, it was the Braves of the King to an extent as, you know, soaking that damage initially. This creates a problem, because if we consider the rest of his roster, like if we consider the Nubian Swordsmen, the Nubian Spearmen, they don't have the durability needed to succeed in this kind of battle. And actually, like, if we consider all of the Egyptian units against, like, the Hittites, is a problem. Now, to be clear, if you're playing Egypt and going up against Hatti, you're playing a fairly long campaign. And if you're going against Hatti, you need to have a significant amount of combat power. And you're going to have Canaanite units and all that kind of stuff, right? Veteran Canaanite swordsmen, or renowned Canaanite swordsmen, shield bearers, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to try and fight field battles, preferably, because that is the one advantage Egypt might have, because you have greater mobility, your archers are better than Hittite archers, you can use that. You're attacking settlement directly, but point is, whoever has the heavier units in a siege is going to win. As long as they're not stupid enough to split their units, sending them on the walls or anything like that. But whoever has, like, keep in mind though, I want to point this out. I have only one more unit than Kurtis had. Granted, he didn't use any of his advantages, but it would be fairly easy to... It would be fairly easy. Like, I could win this battle even if he had held the choke points. It's a bit bizarre that he didn't hold the choke points. Maybe it comes down to the fact that I had ladders and towers and all that kind of stuff. But either way, Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.